There has been a lot of negativity around the Call of Duty Black Ops 7 release, however the multiplayer aspect of the game is actually pretty good. I would even go as far to say that it's actually one of the best multiplayer experiences that we've had from Call of Duty in a good few years now. So because of that, I've decided to rank the maps from best to worst in my opinion. Now this video is only going to feature the 6v6 maps. Paranoia was meant to be released with the game as a 6v6 map, but currently it's only a 2v2 gunfighter map, so therefore that is not in this list. However, since Nuketown's been added to the game, that one is in this list. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alright, so we're starting off with Nuketown, and well, I'm not really too sure what to say about Nuketown at this point. It's been done to death. I think it's pretty much been in every Black Ops game at this point, and for me personally, I'm kind of over it now. I will say that when it was put in Black Ops 6, I really enjoyed it. I think that's because I was camo grinding though, whereas I'm not doing the camo grind in Black Ops 7. I probably will get around doing it at some point, but I'm not actively grinding for camos right now, so I don't need this brain rot map in the game. In terms of it, it's solid enough, but I will say though that I think the caliber of maps in this game actually knock Nuketown down a little bit in terms of just the fact of I've played it so many times. So that's why I'm giving Nuketown the rating of a C. On to the Forge, and for me, this is just one of those maps that's very mid-feeling and very, very forgettable. This one was in the beta, and for the most part, I just didn't vibe with it in the slightest. And well, I don't vibe with it in the full game either. I think it's going to be very, very forgettable in a few years. No one's really going to remember it all that much. It plays alright, but it's not like fantastic or anything, so that's why I'm giving it a C. On to another map that was in the beta in the form of Blackheart. Now this, for me personally, is a very solid map. I feel like the game flows well, and I feel like there's plenty of action to be had on this map. It's very much a traditional 3-lane map with loads of the action taking place in sort of a central building. For me personally, I actually really like this map. I think it's quite vibrant, it looks good, it plays well, and it's one of probably the standout maps in this game. I'm going to give it a B. Now for Den, which is the first map that I ever played on Black Ops 7's multiplayer. I actually really vibe with the aesthetic, and I think for the most part it plays pretty well. Set in like a Japanese temple, I really, really like the colour palette. I will say that if Ashika Island had this colour palette, Ashika Island would still be with us in the game today, hands down. That's how good this colour palette and the vibe of this map is. I'm actually a big fan of it. I'm going to give it a B. On to Colossus, and this was the map that was really and ahhing about where I was going to put it on this tier list. Now, for the most part, the mid-map is very action-packed, it's very fast-paced, there's a lot of grenade spam going into the central room. I actually really enjoy that part of it. However, for me personally, visibility on this map is a bit of an issue. Now, I know I wear glasses, so my eyesight's not exactly the greatest, but I think visibility on this map can be quite poor at times, and there are quite a few head glitches, and especially with the long lines of sight on this map, that kind of really interrupts the flow of the game for me, I will say. It's not an horrendous map, but it's also not my favourite, so that's why I'm giving it a C. Now for Scar, and for me personally, this is up there as one of my favourite maps in the game. It feels like it should belong in an old school Golden Era Call of Duty game. That's how I feel about this map. I love how it plays, I love the flow of it, I love how there's sort of like just very simple different bits of height to it, there's nothing too like over the top with it. There's just basically a simple, straight up Call of Duty map, and I feel like this is the standard that we should hold Call of Duty maps to, especially in the modern era. It feels very good, and that's why I'm giving it an A rating. Up next is Exposure. Now, this is a good map, but not a great map, if you know what I mean. I would definitely vote for it over a few other maps on this list, but at the same time, I don't feel like I need to play it. If I feel like it gets skipped or whatever, it's not the end of the world for me. That's how I would look at it. It was one of the better maps in the Black Ops 7 beta, and that carries over into the main game as well. You get a lot of work done on it. It flows pretty decently. Again, it's kind of like 3 different lanes, although I will say one of the lanes on the very far left-hand side, the right-hand side of the map, however you're playing it, where you can sort of like hop over and there's the container in the air. That lane doesn't really is used anywhere near as much as sort of the other two, the central and the other lane, but it works, I will say, and that's why I'm giving it a B. Now for Homestead, and for me personally, this is probably the most aesthetic map going in this game right now. But I don't think it plays all that well in terms of its flow. It's one of those maps that, again, is good, but it's not great. There are definitely worse maps, but there are also definitely better maps in it, if you know what I mean. I don't know what it is about sort of the snowier maps in this game, as we'll come on to later on, but I just don't think they play all that great for me. There's different aspects going on here, and it's actually kind of a somewhat different map from what we've had in the past, so I like how they tried something new with it. I'm going to give it a C rating. On to Flagship, and for me, this is the best map on Black Ops 7 at launch, plus with the addition of Nuketown into it. By far, in my opinion, the map flows incredibly well. It's just 3 lanes. It's kind of just a square with 3 lanes. There's good lines of sight on it, which means you can use kind of any weapon you really want on it. There's close quarters action. There's long range action. It is just simple and effective. And that's what makes good Call of Duty maps, really. Simple, but effective. Flagship is definitely one of them. That's why I'm giving it an S tier rating. Vortex was probably the best map during the Black Ops 7 beta, and it was an extremely good map in the final game. Once again, very traditional 3-lane map, and I feel like all 3 lanes get really good traffic throughout the course of the map. And for me personally, it's absolutely perfectly sized. I feel like you're not in action all of the time, but it's very quick to get into action. So for me personally, I'm giving it an A rating. On to another beta map in the form of Imprint. Now, I hate it in the beta, and I hate it in the full release. It just feels like I'm constantly wandering around looking for people to shoot at. It feels empty, even though it's kind of so full with all these different kind of builds and stuff like that. And I'm just aimlessly walking around, and then I get shot, and then I spawn, and then I have to walk around again. And it feels like when the spawns get flipped over, especially in game modes like Team Deathmatch, where if you run from one side of the map to the other, and then all of a sudden the spawns get flipped, and then the enemy team spawn on the other side, you've got to run all the way back, and it just flows incredibly poorly. It's a D rating. On to the first of the 3 Black Ops 2 maps that are in this game. We're talking about Hijacked, and well, it still stands the test of time. Small map, very narrow map, 3 lanes, a little bit of verticality here and there. Very, very good. You know, we all know how good Hijacked is. Plays very well on Black Ops 7. I'm giving it an A rating. On to another classic map in the form of Express, and I don't think this one is as good as previous iterations of this map that we've had in other Call of Duties. One thing I think that really significantly impacts this map, even though that it's very, very minor for the most part, is that when the train comes through the map, it's nowhere near as fast as what it has been in the past. And because of that, I actually think it kind of takes away from the map a little bit. It kind of takes away from the danger point of get off the tracks as a train coming, because, don't get me wrong, it will kill you, hit you, but, like, it's not like a fast-moving object that you need to kind of avoid anymore, you know? So, for me personally, I feel like they've kind of done this map dirty a little bit. However, given the other maps in the game, and given what I've put as a C ranking already, I will say that this map is better than those ones, so that's why I get a B. Now, I've already said I don't really vibe with the stormy maps in terms of Homestead and Imprint. Well, Retrieval is also up there with them. I kind of don't like this map. I don't know what it is about it. It just doesn't really flow all that well, and it feels a bit big and empty in places. And yeah, it's not an awful lot to say about it, really. I also find visibility tough on the map. I don't know if that's because there's a lot going on in terms of the snow and rocks and trees and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I will say that in a few years' time, when everyone looks back at Black Ops 7 and goes, oh yeah, remember that map? This will be one of those that's very, very forgettable. So that's why Retrieval is getting a D rating. Up next is Toshin, and well, I really, really, really dislike this map. There is just no rhyme or reason to what goes on in this map. The spawns, I think, are all over the place, and it flows incredibly poorly. Apparently, with the Season 1 update that's upcoming soon, there's going to be an update to this map where the crashed train in the middle will then lead up to the train station that's at the top of the map, and it'll flow into there and it connects to there. So that might help it a little bit, but yeah, this one is absolutely awful. It really is. In a game where there's so many good maps, it's not hard to see why this one is by far and above the worst map in the game. And that's why I'm giving it the 3 poop emojis rating. And the final map on today's list is Raid. Now, we all know about Raid. It's one of the best Call of Duty maps of all time, if not the best Call of Duty map of all time. We've had it in previous Black Ops games. It's back in Black Ops 7. It plays really well in Black Ops 7. I'm actually a really big fan of the Japanese theming that they've done to this map. I like how they've tweaked it a little bit. And it still plays just as good as it did back in the Black Ops 2 days. That's why I'm giving this one an S rating. Alright, so let's take a look at what we've got. We've got Flagship and Raid as the 2 best maps on this game. For me personally, I think they're hands down by far and above the best maps in Black Ops 7 right now. Let's move down a little bit into more so the mid-tier aspects. So we've got Nuketown, The Forge, Colossus, and Homestead in C tier. Now, don't get me wrong, these are obviously C tier maps in this game, but I will say though that given how poor some of the recent Call of Duty games have been, especially like Vanguard and Modern Warfare 2, and even Black Ops 6's maps for the most part, a C tier map in this game is pushing like a B or an A tier map in those games, to be fair. So just because they're in C tier does not mean they're incredibly bad. However, we have obviously got Toshin right at the bottom. I don't think there's much saving that map. This is a bad map in this Call of Duty, and it's a bad map in every other Call of Duty. Let me know your thoughts on Black Ops 7's multiplayer in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on what's your favourite map and what's your worst map, and I'll catch us all in the next one.